Welcome, friends, to this episode of Everyday Educator. And I am your host today, Amy Jones. And I am delighted to have with me two very seasoned, well reasoned, wise homeschool moms who are going to help us address this issue that is called I'm in over my head. And I'm calling it the I'm in over my head season because I really have never met, I can say honestly, a mom or dad who have not experienced this feeling or this season of homeschooling and their homeschooling journey. And I have always seen it as over time, a time to pause and reflect and perhaps recalibrate some things in our homeschooling life. And I am eager and delighted to have Courtney Bradshaw and Karin Carpenter here to share their experiences and their wisdom. So we're going to be listening in on their what they have to offer us. And I'm just we've got a lot of good things in store. So let's first get started with some introductions. Courtney, let's start with you. And then Karin, would you, just give us a little bit of background, what's your homeschool journey been like, and what your role is now at CC?
Sure. Thanks, Amy, for having me today. I am a mom of 7 kids, and I'm a pastor's wife. Mm-hmm. We have homeschooled since my oldest had first started in school, and she has just started her freshman year of college. So we've graduated 1. We have 6 more to go. So this, I think, is we're about to start our 12th year of CC. Mm-hmm. And so I will have 5 in the program. I do have a toddler at home, so he will hang out outside of CC. And my role I'm an academic advisor for foundations, essentials, and scribblers, and I tutor foundations in our local community.
And you've done some other things. You were a foundations director. Is that correct? Yes. How long did you get to do that?
I directed for 4 years, and I was what's called a local representative now. I did that for about 4 years, and I also, I guess 4 years is kind of my thing. So I also tutored essentials 4 years, but this year I'm stepping back and being a mom with one of my sons. It's his first year. So
wonderful. Yeah. So you have probably counseled many moms through this season.
And have been counseled through these seasons as well.
It's a two-way street. That's exactly right. Karin, how about you?
Hi, I'm Karin Carpenter, and I have been finished with homeschooling now for 5 years. I have 4 children, all of whom I homeschooled the whole time. My youngest 2 were the only ones in CC because it didn't come to our community until they were in the challenge years. So my younger 2 did challenge, and I jumped into challenge with them. I had an education background, an English teacher, and so I was excited to get in and teach. And then I had to learn that that wasn't really my job and that I was making it harder than it needed to be. Mm-hmm. So then I went in and I tutored with Challenge B. I think I did Challenge B for 6 or 7 years. And I've also tutored Challenge 3, and I've tutored Challenge 4. And I've gotten 1 son through senior thesis. And I also was a local representative for about 5 years. And then my first job at CC was as an academic advisor to the upper challenges. Mm-hmm. And then I moved across to the publishing arm, and I worked as an editor for 4 years. And I have just transitioned into a new job where I get to help lead the team that is translating the products into Spanish.
Wow, that's a lot. Yeah. And a little bit of a disclosure is that Karin and I have known each other since our first child was born. And I tell people we didn't coordinate having children together, but it just so happened that our 4 children lined up perfectly, and we had many homeschool adventures together. So I'm kind of eager to hear what Karin's perspective on those years more like. So before we launch into that, that period of time where we are really struggling with maybe some doubting and questioning, I would love to start with a time where you felt that your homeschool time was flourishing, that you were actually feeling like, okay, it doesn't, now this does not mean things were all going perfectly. It just meant a time where you felt like, okay, things are coming along and we're really flourishing. Because I think it's important for us to see that frequently that's what's happening. And these times that come along are just sort of get embedded in these little places, these little islands of doubt. But really, if we can take the scope of things, we frequently see that, hey, actually, it wasn't as bad as I thought. So, Courtney, do you have some of those times that you can tell us about that things were going well, or you felt like, okay, we're
well, really, usually the beginning of the year, I feel pretty good. Or the beginning of a semester, maybe not in the first week, but we get in a rhythm. And so anytime that I feel like we're in a good rhythm and everybody starts to understand what to do, things feel really good. And so those moments when, okay, my kid can now read the directions on this math sheet or something like that, where, okay, I don't have to sit right next to you with everybody all the time. Those are moments that feel like we're doing, we're getting it, we're getting things under our belt, and we hit a rhythm in the school year. And it's usually the very beginning or towards, as you really first start and everybody's still building with that excitement. And then, again, sometimes after the winter break, we come back and we reset and we start again. And so those are times for me that I feel like, okay, I'm able to do this. We've got this. Nothing's tripping us up too much.
Yes. That's good. Yeah. I've felt that too. And there's still some energy going on, and there's those shiny new notebooks that are beckoning to be filled. So yeah, that's nice. Yeah. But the rhythm is restful. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Karin, how about you?
I am an anti-rhythm person by nature, and I resist routine. And so the joy of homeschooling for me were the out of the box moments, the aha moments when my children would get excited about something. And I would say, by and large, most of those came either with other friends, whether it was at the park or at CC, or in our backyard, just enjoying what the Lord had provided for us to look at this day. And sometimes I could get too focused and I think math was always that for me. But when I could step away from the boxes to check and really get excited alongside my student, that was always the joyous moment. And that's usually when they woke up the most excited to be doing whatever it was their school was that day. So for me, I loved making school approachable. It isn't always that way, but as many times as I could make it joyous, that was when I felt like we were doing an amazing day. It was just felt like it wasn't even work on those days.
Yes, those are great. Yeah, it's those that I agree with you, and those are the moments we really remember, isn't it? When you think back, and really, it's the moments that our kids remember. That's what's always encouraging for me, because they don't. When I talk to my daughter, and my daughter and daughter-in-law is actually homeschooling, and when I reflect back with them, they don't really remember those times where fortunately, when I was like kind of frantic or felt worried. I think I internalized a lot of that, but they really remember those real fun time, those moments, or like my son was just sharing the other day with his wife. He really loved the times that we were quiet, that he could just he said, I could just make a cup of tea and sit down and be still. And I thought, oh, that's really a nice memory for him, but that rhythm was really important for him too. So that's good. So yeah, those are good thoughts. Thank you guys. That stirs up some good memories for me. Karin, do you have any of those moments? And what were some of the what is some description of those times for you?
Yes. I don't think any homeschool mom could ever truthfully say they don't have those moments.
Yes.
I think that we all get overwhelmed at every stage of our life for a little while. I
Mhm.
can remember walking through my living room and thinking that every toy in the universe was on my floor, and that was overwhelming.
Mhm.
And that 2 years later was not really part of my life. It was a
Yeah.
new thing that I
Right.
was trying to manage. So I think that remembering that they're seasons is really
Mhm.
important. But I think the one thing that was the most overwhelming for me is when I had my youngest as a toddler. So I think of you right now, Courtney, and they want your attention,
Mhm.
but you can get super focused on the tasks of your other students and they all want your attention. They're saying, but mom, I don't understand. But mom, what can I be doing now? And where? And that, when they all talk to me at once, I think was the most overwhelming. And that doesn't stop. That's not a season. My kids all still talk to me at once and they're adults. So
Mhm.
um, it's good to have school as a time to teach them, hey, we're going to take turns, or we're going to be listening really hard to what this other person is saying right now.
Mhm.
But I think that when I felt the spread the most thin is when I would feel overwhelmed. And
Mhm.
whether that was when I was expecting and didn't have any energy, or whether it was when everybody was talking at once, it's when I was spread the most thin. But as a redemption idea on that is, I often found that the day that I crashed, and there were many days, and I'll just tell you that I would pick up the phone at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon and I would say, Amy, if we don't go to the park, I may have one less child the next time you see me. Because
Get
it
back
just got overwhelming. And we did go outside a lot. That was the
Mhm.
answer. Go look at turtles, or go look at the
Yes.
lake, or go whatever. But
Mhm.
the next day, after that day, because that day I would throw myself at Jesus' feet and say, I cannot do this.
Yeah.
And his answer was not, yes, you can. His answer was, I know,
Yes,
but I can.
but I can.
And that next day, almost every time, I would be like, oh, we look like the advertisement for homeschooling today. How did that happen? But I always had to get to the end of myself.
Hey guys, I want to interrupt this show to tell you more about this semester's sponsor, Judson College. Judson College is such a perfect fit for CC students because they align with our Christian, classical, and community values. So as far as being Christian is concerned, Judson College equips students to give their lives for Christ's cause wherever he may call them, whether it's the marketplace or into official vocational ministry. As a confessional institution rooted in scripture, the college is committed to providing theologically and biblically sound education, which is very important to you, we know. Well, they also have a vibrant community, and that plays a vital role in the students' education at Judson College. They have small class sizes, which allow professors to intentionally invest in students, but they also have a house system where the students are allowed to have competitions, vibrant community, and deep fellowship from freshman year to graduation. Lastly, Judson College does value classical thinking. They help develop critical thinkers and equip them to engage in the conversations around them. There's a great books course, which I think is really great, and it's integrated into every single one of their undergraduate degrees. So this provides a solid foundation in human ideas through primary texts, and they're all taught through a biblical worldview so that students don't just grow as scholars, they also grow as committed Christ followers. Find out what makes the Judson College experience different at judsoncollege.com/distinctions/. Let's get back to the show.
I think when I recognize that Christ is in the room with me, that I'm not the only one left, and that I can depend on Him. And I think there are times that He brings us to that point, in order for us to understand how to learn to depend on Him. That's the best thing for our children to watch. So,
Mhm.
Courtney, how about
Absolutely.
you?
I mean, I agree. I was thinking the same thing that Karin said, that the times that are the hardest are the times that I feel overwhelmed. And that might be when with a new, I don't know, people say babies is really hard when you have a baby, but it's really hard when you have a toddler. Like,
Yeah.
I can strap a newborn to me and walk around and, but it's picking everything up off the floor that he has pulled down because he wants your attention. Specifically for us, we adopted 3 children from foster care, and they all came at one time. And so our family went from 3 to 6 kids at one time. And my oldest was in challenge A, and we were getting ready for, it was almost time it was right over the Christmas break. So it was like science fair was happening, and just so many things felt like they kind of piled up. And in the beginning, it was okay because there's so many people who come and they help and they bring food and they bring the things and they're so supportive. But it's the few months after that when you're trying to be, in life, you're trying to walk through and figure everybody out, that it gets a little bit harder and a little more lonely because we can't do what we were able to do with 3 kids. Now we have 6, and they were young, they were really little. And so, and just sometimes transitions, I think, can be difficult. And that's for us. The loneliness sometimes is the hard outside of the questions. And that is what I have written down, is all the questions that come. And I feel nervous with that, is that it can be lonely. And so, who do you ask? My daughter gets upset every time I tell her this is wrong. It's hard to know and to feel like you're not the only one who experiences this, because being a parent and a teacher at the same time is a different dynamic than a lot of kids have. And the things that I've seen modeled in my home. And so you feel like, oh, nobody else, like, why am I so bad at this? Like, that's when it's hard. Or when I think really that's the like what happens after. That's the consequence of things that are hard, or not the consequence, but that's the effect of when we're busy, is that then I feel lonely, I guess.
Well, I'm so glad you brought that up, because I'd like for us to talk about that, because about that loneliness, because I think that does that's a common, I was thinking, between the good and the bad, so to speak, the best of times, worst of times, that some of the common denominators are, that we have the Lord with us. He sustains us. Those are the bedrock truths. But some of the differences, for me, I'd like for us to talk about that loneliness. It sort of eats you alive. And Karin, did you experience that? Of course.
Well, by God's grace, you were in my life. There is a huge sense in which I tell my daughters-in-law, find yourself an Amy and hook on, because if you can find a godly friend who will laugh with you when things are tough, because everything's good to laugh at, and who will point you back to the Lord and love your children well. Then that's where a lot of the loneliness can dissipate. I think that the loneliness for me was more of an intellectual, like I could be doing other things with my brain. I could be doing other things with my time. I'm not even good at this, was a voice that I would hear in my head. And why am I spending all day doing something I'm not good at when I could go do something I am good at? So it was more of an intellectual battle for me. It is funny to say that you're lonely in the presence of 5 people or 8 people or whatever, but it's true that the shouldering of all of their health and all of their emotional questions and all of their spiritual questions and all of their academic questions, it can weigh. And not having anyone next to you to take the load for a while. We used to laugh. It's like we're the teacher and the custodian and the bus driver and the whatever, you have all those roles, and the sports mom. So, it can feel lonely. The more fellowship you can push yourself into that is available, whatever it's available. Different seasons is different ways. But I think that we sometimes think we don't have time to go do that book club, or we don't have time to go do that whatever because we need to be home working on our lesson plans or whatever. But truthfully, I'm a much better mom, a much better teacher, a much better whatever when I have listened to the Lord through the mouths of other people.
That's good. That's good. Did you find that true too, Courtney? Is there a place that you have fellowship?
Yes. I mean, just easily, I have fellowship with the other foundations and essentials moms. Staying for lunch.
Yes.
Was super helpful. It's easier as you don't have little bitties who are running around, and you can, sit and actually talk to the other moms. But it's very helpful to have that. When mine were all very little, when I was directing, I would always invite all of our families, all of the moms, to the information meetings. And so I was like, just come, even if you don't have somebody to bring with you, come, and then we can be together. And they ended up being such fun times. Sometimes we might not have anybody who was coming to learn about foundations, but we had each other. And so some of my I have an Amy too, and I have a sister who also homeschools, and so, but her children are younger than my older group is, and so once her family kind of caught up with ours, it's been such a blessing, to say, hey, I'm struggling with this, or she'll call and say, hey, this is what I'm going through. Is this normal? And just to be able to say that, to say the thing that makes you afraid, or to say the thing that makes you feel like you're doing it wrong, or I'm not good at this. To have someone to say that to, and to say, oh, wait, well, if you're doing it wrong, then so am I.
Yes.
Really does help. And to point us back to the Lord, and so many, the challenge directors that have just seen my children, and they look at them and they know them. We've had foundations tutors who they just know your kid, and they see them in a way that you feel like you're the only person who sees them that way. Even if that person is not someone you would call normally, they become part of that that community that knows that your child is well loved, and that all of those things help the lonely and the crazy moments when I'm going to pull my hair, because I've got 6 people asking me questions or any of that. It's just knowing that others love you well, even if they haven't told you today, or even if, you haven't heard from them in that moment.
Yeah, that is so strong. Yeah, because I was thinking with Karin, our relationship was so helpful because that's exactly, we were like each other's sounding board. And then sometimes just correction, like, okay, now just I'm reminding you that, I really love so-and-so. I think they're great people. And you're like, okay, I needed to just hear that today. Or I think you can, and then asking questions like, are you kind of taking on too much? Is there something that we can drop? Or I think one thing we did that I really appreciated is we actually took teacher work days and we would go off, we'd get a sitter for all our kids. And we would spend it didn't have to be hours and hours, but just a half a day, and usually just praying, like going and praying for each other, for our families, and having each other pray for. It was just so sweet to have like Karin praying for my children and hearing someone else affirming them, praying and a blessing over them. So yeah, I would strongly encourage community. And one of the things I wanted to point out is I think it's really good for our kids. It's not just for us. So maybe you could speak to that. What do you think, Karin? Do you think that was true for you?
Oh, absolutely. And I think in the same way that we need to hear somebody say, this is okay, that happens to me all the time, our kids need to hear that too. So I think that for me, Catherine went into CC at Challenge A, and we were hitting a time in our lives when like you said, she didn't want to be told she was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't want to be told much of anything at 13. And I was having to be the heavy all the time. Yes, do that. Yes, do that. Do this, clean this, do this, finish that assignment. And her time in Challenge A completely shifted the balance because she didn't want to disappoint her classmates and not be ready for a discussion or not have her homework done. There's a little bit of competition in a healthy way. And, I said something about not having something done. She said, oh, Miss Rochelle would never expect me not to have my work done. Like, well, why did Mom expect you not to? Yeah, it was a funny thing. But yes, it was very much. And then I think the other thing that being in community with other kids helps them with is tackling hard things. Is they see somebody who's a goof just like they are, that's still going to work hard at mock trial or still going to work hard at writing a paper, and they tackle hard things and learn about themselves so amazingly. Wow. So yes, definitely. In the same way, we're not supposed to be Lone Ranger Christians and all by ourselves. I think there needs to be I think community is one of the best things that CC fosters, and impacts me, my children, all of us together, to become the body of Christ and to show my kids how that works.
Yeah, that's really good. I liked it too because it was just a mix. It wasn't like a group of friends that were all did the same thing, said the same thing. I mean, that we had before CC, Karin and I had co-ops, and that's what we would do every year, is try to round us all up and do it. But I love CC too because the community is such varied. We're coming from varied ages of kids. They're not all the same age. And so my children, especially my youngest, got to be with younger kids. He had never been with younger kids before, and or seeing older kids and all that they were doing. And they were just from. We were in a community where people were coming from a distance because there weren't that many at that time, and it was just delightful to just see other families from other churches, other communities. In fact, my daughter, she and her husband and their children just joined a church, and their small group leader had a daughter in my Challenge 1 class. She goes, Mom, do you know this family? I was like, that's so familiar. I mean, that was like 10 years ago or so. And sure enough, the mom remembered my daughter. And I thought, oh, that is so dear to see how this community, and I just had that daughter for a year, that how community extends itself and really blesses. It reassures me that we're not all supposed to be the same kind of person. We can homeschool very differently, and it works out. And how about those times? Like, one of the things that really encouraged me are those times of celebration. Did you, like, when you get to see someone else, or is that true of you guys? Courtney, do you have some ideas about, your family and that encouraging that way?
Oh, yes. So, I mean, one of the big things, or the most recent, I guess, was we just finished senior thesis with my oldest this past year, and the parents and the grandparents that came and stayed for all of them, the community members that came and listened, and they spent the entire day. I didn't. I was there for just my daughters because I have so many little kids that I didn't see. And so many of them, they came and they stayed, and it was beautiful to see how they celebrated her, and how we did a senior walk on the last day of foundations this past year. And so all the kids lined the halls and they cheered and they got really excited. And then we had worship and prayer time together, and the parents who were crying and praying over our children. It was so beautiful and so lovely. And to celebrate one another and to see, what we're doing.
Yes.
There's a purpose behind it, and we're working our way towards this, and we will get there one day. And it was so beautiful to see that. And it was heartwarming for me that's when we definitely did not feel alone in those moments, you know, just to see how many people we had in the corner. It was fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah. Just seeing the end gives you that perspective, doesn't it? It keeps you from feeling that those despair moments don't happen. They're not as extended when you remember that. Karin, did you have some? I know we did. We had lots of celebration moments.
We did. We had some both in and out of school with scouts and sports and all sorts of things. One I'm remembering is not my child, but it was one of my students in Challenge B. And I'm not sure I heard her voice for the first 6 weeks of class. She was so shy and so quiet. And when we got to mock trial, she was really, really struggling, like, you know, having to leave the classroom, crying, just the whole bit. And I went to her mom, took her aside and said, I will do what you want me to do, but I really think she's got the capability to do this. So between her mom and I, we decided that we were going to hold her feet to the fire and make sure. And so she came and she was one of the little witnesses on the case, and she finished her spot, and she had done a fabulous job. And she walked to the edge of the stage and jumped off and raised her hands like it was over. And everybody burst into applause in the entire place. And I was like, you know, there's no other way to communicate how blessed you are and how God made you. But when other people celebrate you, it's just, you see yourself differently. And that was just it was a gigantic moment. My kids had those kind of moments all along, but I remember for her in particular that she went from that to presenting a senior thesis, because I got to be her Challenge 4 director too. She stood in front and she defended a thesis. And this is the thing to remember when you're overwhelmed, that they're not going to be in 7th grade forever. They grow and they mature and they get more skills, and you don't need to hold them in your mind there. You just open the door and let the Lord grow them.
Do you ever wish you were a little more well-versed in the classical tools of learning? Want to go back to school? Join the Classical Learning Cohort. It's designed to meet you where you are, to encourage and to equip you as you educate your children. Look, regardless of what season you're in, scribbling with your littles, coaching your teens, or even walking alongside your adult children, the Classical Learning Cohort mentors will help you reach your educational goals. The CLC provides rich learning through practice with the classical arts and skills, along with some hospitable assessment. Hey, and did you know that Challenge 4 grads are welcome in the CLC also? Check out the website to learn more. Look, the classical cohort is not just for homeschool moms. Many homeschool dads are benefiting from what the cohort has to offer them as leaders at home, at work, at church, and in the community. To learn more, register for a free online event at www.classicalconversations.com/cohort.
Yes, that's that is so great, because I feel like the best part of homeschooling to me is when you felt you were in partnership with the Lord. Like you could see, like, oh, I'm beginning to see, like you were just saying, how this child is developing. I mean, and it can be from toddler, I was with my toddler grandson yesterday, and I'm beginning to see his little heart, and how it grows. And then I could see my oldest granddaughter and going, okay, 11, we're going to get there. And I think when you are overwhelmed, just realizing, like you said, this is just a season. And I can move through this season with the Lord, and He can help me. Even when you have really dark seasons, if there's been a loss in your family or caregiving that you've had to do with a relative or something, an illness that you've had, or a loss of a job or that sort of thing. Those are also times that we feel overwhelmed. Yes, and there are those are times that I feel like just clinging to the Lord. I've just seen Him deliver so many times. I mean, I know we could testify all day, but I do want to ask you, what are some practical things like when there are those moments? Where do you go to? So, Courtney, what do you have? What's your list that you go to?
Yeah. So, well, I have to assess. I mean, that's one thing that I do with myself first. If my heart is the one that is the problem. So, have I been communing with the Lord daily? Not just did I today, but have I been consistently walking in His presence? And usually that answer is no, right? If we're in this season, then usually that's the problem. And I really don't love the statement that the mom is the thermostat in the home.
Yeah.
Because it feels really blaming and like heavy, but it can be true too, and that if I am the one, if I am having a good day, then we are having a good day. And so if I'm walking with the Lord, then most things go a lot better in our home. So I have to really assess that. And then I love the CC blogs. I try to, and I know, like, I love the podcast. And so there are times that I will pop in one earbud. Like, I'm not a two, I can't not hear what's going on in the house, but put one in while I'm folding the laundry, or I am doing the dishes, or writing out my foundations board, things like that. Just really have some time to hear from someone else's perspective. And then I have people, I have children with learning challenges. And for a long time, I was afraid that I was doing something wrong, or they were missing, or there were professionals who said, well, maybe you just need to put them in school, or maybe this is the problem. And so it made me afraid to do some, or to take them somewhere, or to advocate for them in the ways that they needed. But within our community, I've found other families who struggle in the same way, or who have differences as like we do. And so there are people that I call, hey, we are going through this. Is this what you've experienced? Do I need to push harder? And for so many things, I mean, there's just different, adoption things, and then, but also sensory things, or reading things. And so I love the things with CC. I try to reread Classical Education Made Approachable every few years. And then and just several of the books. I try to reread something new each year so that I can be reminded of, okay, we can do this. This is the first time this kid has been through this, and so I need to look at it in a different way. Those are the things that I think help me to refocus, and I think that's probably why the beginnings of the year are a little easier.
Yes, I agree. And yeah, that's a really good, a very foundational part of what we need, is just to assess, where am I? What am I doing? We're going to need to wrap up here. And I wanted to read this. Thanks for bringing up the idea of blogs, Courtney, because I found this jewel from Lisa Bailey. She writes, what we needed to do, and this is when she was overwhelmed, what we needed to do was remember why we began the homeschool journey. Not because I knew enough, but because I loved enough. I thought that's great. I loved them enough and loved learning enough to pursue knowledge, understanding, and wisdom with my girls. I trusted the classical model enough to believe that mastering the grammar of a subject would lead me to the understanding I sought. I needed to push aside my fear and once again find joy in the journey. Courtney, do you have some ideas that you'd like to share? Last bits of wisdom?
Oh, yeah. I love that quote. I love that she says, I needed to remember, which means that I don't always know. And so I have to go back and remind myself. And so some of the things that I remind myself, and that I hope others will, is that you're not alone.
Yes.
There are others who are experiencing this. It's not your fault.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a hard day. And ask all the questions. It's okay to ask the questions. If you think we're not doing this right, ask someone, because they probably have felt the same way, if not are feeling the same way. And then also be willing to share once you have learned.
Mm-hmm.
Find someone else who may feel the same way. And I think sending out that rescue line sometimes helps us when we, when we are drowning. I have a friend who often will say, how can I buoy you? How can I hold you and support you? And so be that for someone because they need it too.
Yes. Oh, that's great. Thank you, guys. This was a fantastic opportunity for me to just recollect and hear. And, honestly, we keep applying this, don't we? Whether we're homeschooling actively or not. These are life skills. So thank you guys for joining me. And listeners, look forward to next week for the next Everyday Educator. There are always such great opportunities to hear encouraging words from wise people. So thank you.